Joining me now to discuss the latest on the American political front and everything that's been happening from different presidential candidate announcements, and more specifically, the rise in the far right-wing factions of the Republican Party, what that means for Democrats, is California Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell. Congressman, thanks so much for making the time.
It's my pleasure, Wyatt. Nice to see you again. Are you back in Canada?
I am, as of now, I am. Yes. Perhaps let's just start.
I think this is my first Canadian interview, so a little bit of history for us here.
All right, I'll be sure to tell my other Canadian journalist friends that I landed the first Canadian interview. Perhaps we can just start with what you make with the growing far right-wing factions within the Republican Party, and the fact that it seems to be quite normal for them to receive positions on committees and be tolerated by House leadership, to again the fact that they receive things like committee assignments.
Wyatt, it's really a part of a corrupt bargain that Kevin McCarthy struck to go into power. Now, he promised America that he would win the midterms with 50 plus seats in the majority. He only ended up getting 5. And so he has now been forced to negotiate and strike a corrupt deal with far-right MAGA extremists like Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and George Santos. And so he may be the speaker in title, but those individuals have the job of speaker. And so there's installments that have to be paid every week or so on this corrupt bargain. So Marjorie Taylor Greene gets to go on the Homeland Security Committee, even though she rooted for the rioters on January 6th. George Santos gets to stay in Congress, even though he's a wanted, self-admitted liar, international criminal. And now Tucker Carlson receives 40,000 hours of sensitive security footage because we have to do everything possible, Kevin McCarthy believes, to sanitize what happened on January 6th, rewrite history, and erase the heroism of the officers that day. So it's only going to get worse as Kevin McCarthy, in this reoccurring payment system that he's under to be speaker, has to keep delivering.
And how can Democrats still efficiently serve and try to pass what they want to pass, given the fact that the Republicans are in a majority, given that it is such a slim majority? What does that say as to how efficient Democrats can be in Congress?
Yeah, Wyatt, I think about, well, what do we really need to get done in this next year or so, right? So Democrats are not in the majority in the House. In the Senate, we're able to pass appointments and put judges on the bench, appoint ambassadors and cabinet officials, sign off on world international treaties. But what do we really need to deliver for the American people if it's divided government? Well, we have to, first and foremost, pay America's bills. We call that extending the debt ceiling. So we will need Republicans in the House to work with us to do that. We need to keep the government open and not shut down the government, as many Republicans have threatened to do, so to make sure that the economy and public safety is ensured. And then there's this crisis in Ukraine, and we need to keep Ukraine in the fight. Right now, there is a brewing economic crisis around a large bank in Silicon Valley that has just been taken over by the federal government because it cannot meet its deposits, the obligations of deposits that were put into the bank. And we will see crises like this come up from time to time. And we'll need bipartisanship, as we had during COVID, to solve the crisis that can be of the day, of the month, of the moment. And so that's really the most we're going to be able to do in divided government, but it's a lot. And so Republicans, they can let all the crazy out of the pot that they want to do, but they're going to be expected by the country, for the good of the country, to deliver on those key issues.
And I mean, it's kind of been shown now that on both sides, there's small appetite for a Trump-Biden rematch. What do you make as to, when we look at 2024, what the Democrats should be thinking about, what the Republicans should be thinking about, and how that kind of fits into what the American people are thinking about?
We're still in this vortex of Trumpism and MAGA nation and what happened, after the 2020 election. And thankfully, in the midterms, extremism was rejected. But we're still seeing election deniers persist. Tucker Carlson, as I said, is trying to rewrite history with these January 6th, security footage that he has. The leader of the Republican Party in Congress, Kevin McCarthy, has 180'd on condemning what happened on January 6th to now, allowing congressional delegations to go visit the terrorists at the DC jail who are responsible for January 6th. And so we're still in this vortex of extremism, and we need to decide, are we a country that wants competency in governing, or do we want chaos? Do we prefer violence when it comes to enacting a political will, or do we prefer voting? Do we prefer facts when it comes to what is really happening, or will we be led by fascism? And these are the decisions we have to make as a country. And democracy right now, as we speak, Wyatt, is on life support. And so I'm on the team, I think, that wants to resuscitate it and get it thriving again. But there's many who want to pull the plug and go to a Ron DeSantis authoritative model, or go back to Donald Trump, where free speech was suppressed and dictator-like instincts prevailed.
And just lastly, before we conclude, what do you think the Democrats need to do to be able to potentially gain the support from some of those, not necessarily Trump Republicans, because it seems as of right now, like, the ones who are still with and still supporting Donald Trump, for example, are, going to stay with him for quite a while, but potentially pull in some people from, Nikki Haley's campaign, or from some of the more moderate Republicans that you think of, like New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu, or other people who have said that they may potentially be considering a run for the job.
Yeah, again, we just have to stay, as I said, in the competence lane. Tell the country what we delivered over the last 2 years. Make a case about what we will do, quote unquote, finishing the job, as the president says, if we're in the majority and have the White House in the next 2 years, and then call out the chaos. So I call it kind of a 3D approach. Discredit the Republicans on, what they're standing for and trying to do, and make sure everyone knows about this corrupt bargain that I just told you about. Debunk any of the lies that they tell, to the country, whether it's January 6th or any other rewriting of history they're trying to do, and then pivot to what we will deliver again if we're in the majority. So that 3D approach, I think, will put us in a position to help the country when we are in, again, a position to lead.
Okay, California Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell. Congressman, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Wyatt, and really enjoyed talking with you today.